My name is Elena Carter. I was 29 years old the night my mother slid a printed document across the dinner table like it was just another dish. You need to read this, she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. I looked at the paper. At first, I thought it was something boring, maybe a bill, maybe insurance. Then I saw my name at the top, and under it, total due, $14,600. For a second, I actually smiled, because it didn't make sense. What is this? I asked. My father didn't even look at me. It's what you owe, he said, to this house. That's when the smile disappeared. My younger sister let out a quiet laugh under her breath. Wow, she said. They finally did it. Finally did what? I looked back down. Everything was there. Rent, utilities, late fees, adjustment charges, even something called household strain penalty. I blinked. Is this a joke? No one answered. My mother folded her hands neatly on the table. We've been patient with you, she said. But you're not a child anymore. Not a child. I had been back home for 4 days. 4. First payment is this Saturday, my father added. 1,500. And if I don't pay? I asked. He finally looked at me. Then you don't stay here. Just like that. No hesitation, no emotion. Like he was talking about a tenant, not his daughter. Across the table, my sister picked up her phone. I didn't think anything of it at first, until I noticed the angle. The way she tilted it slightly, pointing at me. Recording. Of course she was. I looked back at the paper. Clean layout, perfect formatting. Everything aligned. Too perfect. That's when something small caught my eye. Bottom right corner. Tiny text. Almost invisible. A print timestamp. Dated 8 days ago. I froze. 8 days. I hadn't even moved back yet. I told them I was coming home 5 days ago, which meant this wasn't a reaction. This wasn't frustration. This was already decided, planned, prepared. They had created this before I even stepped into the house, before my bags touched the floor, before I sat at this table. They knew exactly how this moment would go, who would say what, where everyone would sit, even my sister, ready to record it. I slowly placed the paper back on the table. No one spoke. And in that silence, something inside me didn't break. It didn't explode. It didn't even hurt the way I expected. It just went quiet. Have you ever had that feeling? When you suddenly realize the place you thought you could return to was never really waiting for you? Before I tell you what I did next, tell me something. Where are you watching this from? And what time is it right now? I always wonder how far stories like this travel before they land somewhere they're understood. Because what happened after that night wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it changed everything. I didn't argue. That's the part they didn't expect. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't defend myself. I just nodded once like I had accepted it. And that confused them. You could see it. My father leaned back slightly, like he was waiting for a fight that didn't come. My mother narrowed her eyes just a little, trying to read me. My sister lowered her phone for a second, disappointed. No reaction, no scene, no entertainment. Say something, my father said. I looked at him, then at the paper, then back at him. You made a bill for your own daughter? I asked quietly. He shook his head. No, he said. I made a bill for someone who only shows up when life gets difficult. That landed, not because it was true, but because he believed it. I looked down again, line by line, until one thing stood out. Household strain penalty. I almost laughed. What is this? I asked, pointing at it. My mother finally met my eyes. You have no idea how much stress you've caused this family over the years. Stress. I nodded slowly. Across the table, my sister smirked. Honestly, they should have charged more. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled, and turned it slightly toward me. A private story. Already posted. The caption read, "Some people move back home and still think they're the victim. Jiawao." That hurt. Not deeply, not loudly, just enough. Enough to understand something clearly. This wasn't about money. This was about position, about making sure I knew exactly where I stood. I pushed my chair back, stood up, and picked up the paper. Sit down, my father said, sharper this time. We're not done. I looked at him. Really looked. For the first time that night. No, I said calmly. You are. And I walked away. Upstairs. The hallway felt different, like the house had already adjusted without me. I opened the door to my old room and stopped. Something was wrong. The bed was there, the walls were there, but everything else was gone. My desk, gone. Shelves, gone. Even the small things, photos, books, old notes, gone. Like someone had erased me. Like I had never lived there at all. I stepped back into the hallway slowly, and that's when I saw it. A frame on the wall. A family picture. All of us standing together, smiling, perfect, except my face. There was a red line across it, not permanent, just marker, rough. Deliberate, temporary, but intentional. I stared at it for a long time, and then something hit me, hard, a memory. When I was 18, my father's business nearly collapsed. He didn't tell anyone outside, but inside the house, everything was falling apart. Bills, calls, silence. At dinner, my parents barely sleeping. We were close to losing everything. So I did something no one asked me to do. I sold my laptop, the one I needed for college, then my camera, the one I saved for almost a year. I told my friends it got stolen. I handed the money to my mother quietly quietly in a parking lot so my father wouldn't feel ashamed. She hugged me tight and whispered, "We will never forget this." I closed my eyes, standing there in that hallway, looking at the red line over my face. They did forget completely, because years later, when they talked about sacrifice, they only talked about their own, never mine. And now they were charging me to exist in the same house I helped protect. I went back into the room, opened my bag, and started packing. Not everything. There wasn't much left to pack anyway, just what was mine, or what hadn't already been taken away. When I came downstairs, they were waiting. Of course they were. My father stood near the door, arms crossed. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked. "Out," I said. My mother shook her head slowly. "If you leave like this," she said, "don't expect to come back and act like everything is normal." That almost made me smile. Normal? There was nothing normal about any of this. My sister leaned against the wall. "You're overreacting," she said. "Everyone pays rent." I looked at her for a second, then I said something I hadn't planned. "Then you start." Silence. Instant. Her expression changed. "What?" she said. "You heard me," I replied. "Show me your bill." She didn't answer. She just looked at our parents, and in that one small moment, everything became clear. This wasn't about fairness. It wasn't about responsibility. It was about me. Only me. And something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. Because when people stop treating you like family and start treating you like a problem, you don't fix it. You recognize it, and then you decide what you're going to do next. I didn't say another word. I opened the door and stepped outside. That night, I slept in my car, and that was the first time in years I felt something that almost felt like peace. The first night, I didn't sleep much, not because I was uncomfortable, but because my mind wouldn't stop. Not racing, just reorganizing. I had parked under a streetlight in a grocery store lot, bright enough to feel safe, busy enough to feel invisible. People came and went, shopping carts rolled past, engines started, doors slammed. Life continued like nothing had happened. I leaned the seat back slightly, pulled my jacket over me, and stared at the ceiling of the car. No tears, no anger, just clarity. It's strange how quiet everything becomes when something inside you finally settles into place. The next morning, I didn't go back. I didn't text. I didn't call. Instead, I opened my phone and booked a small, extended stay room for a week. Cheap, nothing special, but it had a door that locked, and that was enough. By the afternoon, I had blocked my entire family, every number, every message thread, everything, except emergency calls. Not because I cared what they might say, but because I wanted control over when I heard it. Control was something I hadn't had in a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I reached out to someone who knew me before everything got complicated. Her name was Lila. We met that evening at a small diner just off the highway, the kind of place where no one asks questions, where the coffee is always a little burnt and the lights are just a little too dim. Perfect. She looked at me once and knew something was wrong. "Okay," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Start talking." So I did. Everything. The paper, the amount, the interest, the recording, the red line across my face, the empty room, the timestamp. I didn't leave anything out, and she didn't interrupt once. She just listened, quiet, focused, still. When I finished, she leaned back slightly, folded her arms, and said something simple. "They planned it?" I nodded. "I know." "No," she said, shaking her head slowly. "I mean, really planned it." I didn't respond, because I understood what she meant. "They chose the number before you got there," she continued. "They printed it before you unpacked. They even made sure someone was recording." She paused. "That's not emotion," she said. "That's strategy." That word stayed in the air. Strategy. Because that's exactly what it felt like. Not a reaction. Not frustration. A setup. "You're still thinking about it like it's personal," she said. "It is personal," I replied. She tilted her head slightly. "No," she said calmly. "It feels personal. But what they did was calculated." I looked down at the table, at the small scratches in the wood. "You want my honest opinion?" she asked. I nodded. "Stop trying to understand how they feel," she said. "Start understanding how they operate." That hit differently, because I had spent years trying to explain them, excuse them, translate their behavior into something that made sense. But maybe it didn't need to make sense. Maybe it just needed to be seen clearly. Lila reached for a napkin, pulled a pen from her bag, and slid both toward me. "Write everything down," she said. "What do you mean?" "Everything," she repeated. "Every time you helped them, every time money left her hands and went into that house." I hesitated, because I hadn't thought about it like that. Not as a list, not as numbers. Just moments. "Just write," she said. So I did. did. At first, slowly, then faster. I wrote about the laptop, the camera, the money I handed my mother in that parking lot. Then I paused because something else came back, something I hadn't thought about in a long time. 3 years ago, I got a bonus at work. Nothing huge, but enough to finally breathe. I remember sitting in my apartment, thinking about taking a trip, doing something for myself. Then my phone rang, my mother, crying, property taxes, overdue, urgent. They might take the house, she said, so I didn't take the trip. I sent the money instead. $200. I wrote it down, then kept going. The winter, the heating system failed. It's freezing, she said. We can't fix it right now. So I paid for it. $4,600. Credit card, promised repayment, never happened. I wrote that down too. Then more. Smaller amounts, transfers, just this once, just until next month, just help us get through this. Every time I said yes, because that's what you do for family, right? I kept writing until the page was full. Then I flipped it, started another. Lila didn't say anything. She just watched, patient, like she already knew where this was going. After about 10 minutes, my hand slowed down, then stopped. I looked at the numbers, at the list, at everything I had forgotten, until it was right there in front of me. How much? She asked quietly. I swallowed, then started adding carefully, line by line, number by number. No guessing, no rounding, just facts. When I finished, I stared at the total, $21,400. For a second, I didn't react. Then I let out a small laugh, not because it was funny, but because it wasn't. They charged you $14,600, Lila said calmly. I nodded. They owe you more. I leaned back in the booth, staring at the ceiling. Yeah, I said quietly. She tapped the napkin. This changes things. How? You're not the burden, she said. You're the backup plan that hit harder than anything else. Because it explained everything. Every phone call, every emergency, we just need a little help. They didn't solve problems, they redirected them to me. You want to go back and argue with them? She asked. I didn't answer, because part of me did. Part of me wanted to walk in, throw this list on the table, and force them to see it. But another part of me knew that wouldn't work, because if you do, she continued, you'll lose. I looked at her. Why? Because you'll be arguing feelings, she said, and they're playing something else. I already knew she was right. So what do I do? I asked. She leaned forward slightly, her voice calm, clear, controlled. You don't fight them, she said. You document them. Something about the way she said it felt different, not emotional, not reactive, precise. People who think they're in control, she added, get careless. I folded the napkin slowly. So I just wait? She shook her head. No, she said. You prepare. That night back in my room, I opened my laptop and started digging. Old bank statements, emails, message threads, receipts, anything that proved what I had written. At first it felt like work, then something changed. It stopped feeling emotional and started feeling clear, because every file I opened told the same story, not once, not twice, over and over again. I wasn't the problem. I was the solution they kept using, without ever admitting it. One file stood out, a transfer, $8,200. The note, property taxes. Please pay today. Below it, my mother's message, we won't forget this. Don't tell your father yet. I stared at that line for a long time, then saved it. Another file, heating repair. Message, just put it on your card. We'll handle it after New Year. 3 New Years had passed. Nothing. I saved that too. The more I found, the quieter I became. Because evidence does something strange. It doesn't just prove things, it removes doubt. And once doubt is gone, so is hesitation. 6 days passed like that, work during the day, research at night. No distractions, no contact, just focus. Then on the 7th day, my phone lit up. A message from my sister. You still mad? I stared at it, didn't reply. Another message. Dad says your payment is overdue. I let out a short breath. Not quite a laugh, but close. Payment. From people who owed me more than they ever admitted. I put the phone down, sat there for a moment, then picked it back up. Opened my contacts, scrolled, stopped. My father's name. I looked at it for a few seconds, then typed tomorrow, 7 p.m. kitchen. Everyone there. I hit send. The reply came fast. Good. Bring your payment. I stared at the screen, then locked it. Later that night, I showed Lila. She read the message once and gave a small smile. Perfect, she said. Why? Because they still think they're in control. I nodded slowly, and for the first time in days, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not fear, just certainty. Because tomorrow night, I wasn't going back as their daughter. I was going back with the truth. And this time, I wasn't going to explain anything. I was going to show them. The next evening, I arrived at exactly 7:10 p.m. Not early, not late. Exactly on time. The house looked the same. Same walls, same windows, same quiet front yard. But it didn't feel the same. It felt distant. Like a place I used to belong to, not anymore. I walked up to the door, didn't hesitate, didn't knock, just opened it and stepped inside. They were already there. Of course they were. My father sat at the head of the table. Same position, same posture, like nothing had changed. My mother sat beside him, hands folded, eyes alert. My sister leaned back in her chair, phone in hand again, and near the corner, my uncle this time. Not my aunt, different audience, same intention. My father looked up. "You're on time," he said. Then he extended his hand slightly. "Where is it?" I didn't answer, didn't sit. I just walked forward and placed a thick folder in front of him, not gently, not aggressively, just deliberately. He frowned. "What is this?" "Documentation," I said. A small pause. My sister shifted in her seat, curious now. My mother's expression tightened. My father let out a short breath. "Sit down," he said. "Let's not play games." "I'm not," I replied calmly. And then I opened the folder. "Before we talk about what I owe you," I said, "we're going to talk about what you owe me." That changed everything. You could feel it. The air shifted. Subtle, but real. My sister straightened slightly. My uncle leaned forward, interested. My mother glanced at my father. Just for a second, he didn't react. "Not yet." "What are you talking about?" he asked. I didn't answer directly. Instead, I pulled out the first paper, placed it in the center of the table. A printed bank transfer, dated 3 years ago, $200. "Property taxes," I said. Silence. No reaction. So I added the second page, the message attached to it. "We won't forget this. Don't tell your father yet." My mother's face changed, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to notice. My father's eyes moved to her, just for a moment. That was all I needed. I didn't stop. "Next paper. The heating system," I said. $4,600. Receipt. Timestamp. Message confirmation. "Put it on your card. We'll pay you back." I slid it forward. Then another, and another, and another. Small amounts, large amounts, large amounts. Every single one printed, organized, dated, clear, no emotion, just facts. For the next few minutes, no one spoke, because I wasn't arguing. I wasn't raising my voice. I wasn't asking for anything. I was just showing them, line by line, proof by proof, until finally I placed the last page down. A clean summary, simple layout, total at the bottom $21,400. I stepped back slightly. "That's what I've contributed," I said. Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable, real. My mother spoke first, soft, careful. "Elena, we didn't ask you to." "Yes," I said calmly. "You did." She stopped, because she knew. They hadn't said the words, but they had asked. Every time, just differently. My father leaned forward. His tone shifted, from calm to sharp. "This is manipulation," he said. I shook my head. "No," I replied. "What's manipulation is creating a bill before I even moved back." That landed hard. His eyes dropped for a second to the paper in front of him, the timestamp, still there, still visible, still undeniable. My sister looked down at her phone, but this time she wasn't smiling. My uncle leaned back slightly, less comfortable now. Good. They were starting to see it. I let the silence sit for a few seconds. Then I spoke again. "You want to talk about rent?" I said. "Fine." I reached into the folder again, pulled out 2 more pages, and placed them directly in front of my father. He didn't touch them. "What is this?" he asked. "A statement," I said. "Of what?" "Reality." He didn't like that. I could see it. My mother picked up the paper instead. Her eyes moved slowly across the page, then faster. Her breathing changed. "What is this?" she whispered. "Just facts," I said. "Dates, amounts, records of financial support, and one simple line that the amount they claimed I owed had no agreement, no discussion, no legal basis." My father laughed, but it sounded forced. "You think paperwork scares me?" he said. I looked at him. "No," I replied. "I think I'm done being the only one expected to feel small." That hit deeper. You could see it. My sister looked away. My uncle cleared his throat quietly. My mother kept reading. Then something unexpected happened. She picked up a pen. Her hand shook slightly, but she signed the paper. Just like that. No speech, no argument, just a signature. At the bottom, my father looked at her, then at me, then back at the page. For a moment, he hesitated. Only a moment. Then he signed too. Not because he agreed, but because he wanted control back, or at least the feeling of it. I collected the papers, placed them back into the folder, closed it, slowly, carefully. My uncle finally spoke. "So, what happens now?" I looked at him, then at all of them. Really looked. Without emotion, without expectation, and I answered honestly, "No, you live with it." I turned toward the door. "Wait," my father said. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "You're really leaving over this?" he asked. I paused, just for a second. Then I said something I hadn't fully understood until that moment. "I didn't leave because of the paper." I turned slightly, just enough to look at him. I left because you stopped treating me like family and started treating me like something you could charge. No one spoke because there was nothing left to say. So I walked out again, but this time it felt different. Lighter, clearer, final. And honestly, if it had ended there, that would have been enough. But it didn't, because exactly 1 week later, at 1:37 in the morning, my phone started ringing. At 1:37 a.m., my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I ignored the first call, then the second, then the third. Who calls like that? Unless something is wrong, then a message came through from my sister. Answer. It's serious. Another call. Then another message. Mom found something. Please pick up. I sat up, heart already beating faster. For a second, I thought the worst. I called back. She answered instantly. Where are you? She said. Her voice was different, not confident. Not sarcastic, shaky. At the hotel, I said. What happened? There was a pause, then words rushed out. There's a notice from the bank or something about the house. Dad's freaking out. I closed my eyes for a second. Slow down, I said. What kind of notice? I don't know, she snapped. Something about missed payments and taxes? I don't understand it. Can you just come? I didn't move right away. Where are you? I asked. At Uncle David's. Everyone's here. Of course they were. Same pattern, different problem. I grabbed my keys and left. The roads were empty, street lights passing one by one, and that same feeling in my chest. Not panic, not fear, something colder. Because part of me already knew. When I walked into my uncle's house, I felt it immediately. The energy, heavy, chaotic. My mother was sitting on the couch, crying, not quietly, not controlled. Real panic. My father was pacing back and forth, running his hands through his hair over and over again. My sister stood near the kitchen, staring at her phone, like it might give her answers. And my uncle, silent, watching everything. The moment my father saw me, he stopped, walked straight toward me. We need your help, he said. No hello, no apology, just that. I didn't respond. I walked past him, straight to the table. The envelope was there, already opened. I picked it up, started reading, line by line, slowly, carefully. And with every sentence, everything became clearer. Final notice, missed mortgage payments, escrow shortage, tax delinquency, risk of foreclosure. I lowered the paper, and for a moment, no one spoke. Because now it was real, not a tactic, not a setup, a consequence. I looked up at my father. You mean the same house? I said quietly, that you tried to charge me to live in? My mother cried harder. Elena, please. No, I said, not loud, but firm. My uncle stepped in quickly. Your father made mistakes, he said. We all do. I looked at him. Some of you turned it into entertainment, I replied. My sister looked down. Good. Let her feel it. My mother wiped her face. We were trying to teach you responsibility, she said. Things were already bad. I stared at her. So you created fake debt to fix real debt. Silence. Because there was no answer. My father stepped forward again. His voice, different now, lower, less certain. Just tell us what to do. And there it was. Not an apology, not accountability, a request. They didn't want to fix it. They wanted me to fix it, like always. For a moment, I considered walking out, letting them deal with it, letting reality finally catch up. But then something shifted in my thinking. Helping them didn't have to mean saving them. It can mean something else. Clarity, structure, control. I'll look at everything, I said. My mother stood up quickly, relief already on her face. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Don't confuse access with forgiveness. That stopped her immediately. I sat down at the table, spread the papers out. Organize them. Then I started asking questions, real ones. When was the last full mortgage payment? Silence. I looked up. Answer. My father hesitated. 2, maybe 3 months ago. Maybe, I repeated. He swallowed. 3. Did you miss escrow payments? No answer. I looked at him. Did you? Yes. Did you ignore tax notices? My mother spoke this time. We thought we had time. That's not what I asked, I said calmly. Silence again. Then my father nodded. Yes. I kept going. Each question sharper, more precise. Because now, this wasn't emotional. This was structural. Then I found something. Buried in the documents. A detail. Small but important. There's another account, my father said quietly. I looked up. How much? He didn't answer. How much? I repeated. A pause. Then, around 22,000. The room went still. Completely still. I felt something inside me go cold. Not angry, not shocked. Just clear. You had $22,000? I asked. My mother spoke softly. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple, I said. Then I looked at my sister. Did you know? She didn't answer. That was enough. Because now everything made sense. They weren't out of options. They just didn't want to use them. Instead, they created pressure on me. A fake bill, a fake debt, to pull money from the one person who had always said yes. That was the moment. The last piece of doubt disappeared. This wasn't desperation. This was choice. I leaned back slightly, took a slow breath, then spoke. Clear, controlled. Here's what happens next. All eyes on me. You give me everything, I said. Every account, every statement, every notice. I looked directly at my father. If you lied to me again, even once, I paused. I walk. He nodded quickly, too quickly. Fear does that. Before I stood up, he said something quietly. Thank you. I looked at him for a moment, then gave the only honest answer I had. Don't thank me yet, because what they didn't understand was that I wasn't there to protect them anymore. I was there to see things clearly. And once you see things clearly, you stop making emotional decisions. The next few days, I became exactly what they thought I wasn't, the most responsible person in the room. During the day, I worked my job, normal, professional, focused. At night, I handled their crisis, bank calls, documents, deadlines, numbers, fixing the mess they created. And the more I worked, the more obvious it became. There was only one way out, a narrow one, strict, unforgiving. Miss one step and everything falls apart. When I explained it to them, they heard hope. I heard pressure because I knew something they didn't. People like them don't change. They adjust just enough to survive the moment. Then they go back. So I made a decision. I didn't lie for them. I didn't hide anything. I told the truth exactly as it was. And then I stepped back. That night in the car, my mother said something quietly. You saved us. I looked out the window at the passing lights and shook my head. No, I said. I bought you time because time always runs out.